Oh, yes. We might well see Damien in a Russian Cossack hat tonight because he's still on his Russian USSR bender. Hey, get out of my face. He's still on his Russian USSR bender and has us having another Hammer and Sickle. And you know what? After last week's exceptional experience, I have only one thing to say. If I can quote the wonderful former US president, whose name escapes me just at the minute, the old actor dude who stood at the Berlin Wall and said, "Ich bin ein Berliner." I want to update that and say, "Ich bin ein Kommunista." Because if this is the quality of cigar that you can get from the Hammer and Sickle, then excellent. Trouble is, of course, it's not from the Hammer and Sickle. It's from the good old US of A. This one with tobacco from Dominica and Ecuador. We'll talk a lot more about that. But as usual, communism can only survive on the back of good old capitalists. How's that for some social commentary for you? Now, the man himself responsible for choosing this, is he wearing a Cossack hat? No, it's the familiar hat, the familiar face. Damo, I believe you're a little bit under the weather.
Yes, I'm struggling with a head cold and sinus infection at the moment, if you can't tell by my voice. So it's going to make it interesting tonight. I don't know whether I'm going to taste much beyond smoke, but anyway, we'll see.
So your tasting notes tonight will be Sudafed.
Yeah, well, I've already downed the Sudafed and done the Drixine and all that stuff before I got here to just get through the show, you know. I'm drugged to the hilt.
Yes, fair enough. Now, I've actually, unlike other people on this show, I like to provide variety rather than relentless monotony in the drinks that I drink. In 2 years, the two of you have managed to drink kombucha and some ungodly mixture of cow excretions with tea. That's basically all you've gone through. I've gone through a million different whiskeys. I've had some bourbons. I've had some beers. But tonight, I thought I would dedicate tonight's beer to one of our team members and probably the person who really has just been phoning it in, if I'm honest. He's so proud of the fact that he's made every single episode. So proud of the fact that he's made every single episode, in fact, that I nearly just didn't send him the link for tonight's episode. I was like, you know what? Screw him. I won't let him in, and then he'll have to stop bragging, right? But out of the goodness of my heart, I did let him in. And tonight's drink is dedicated to none other than Ohm's Mac G. I am having the Moondog Mac Daddy. Right, I just thought, you know what? Let's just put aside the bad blood. Let's just put aside the war that's been raging for 2 years, mate. Going to put aside the hostilities. I'm having a Moondog Dark Ale. I thought, again, appropriate. Called Mac Daddy. Right? How you doing, Omar?
Living the dream, brother. Really good.
Yeah.
To see you. Really good to see you. Thank you for picking up this drink, man.
Man, I saw it and I thought, I have to. I know what I have to do. It's clear. You know, the clouds parted, the sun shone through. There were angels singing. It was just this moment of clarity. I knew exactly what I had to do. Now, you know what you have to do, of course, Omar, and that is just keep your mouth shut and be the diversity hire for the day. So thanks in advance for that. Damo, are you getting much on the nose with your head cold?
Not a lot, if any at all. It's got a slight smell of Drixine, bit of Sudafed. Maybe a bit of Vicks Vapor Rub in there as well.
Save me. What are you getting?
It's got a very funny tang to it. A very light, sweet tang, which resembles somewhat not the citrus. Funny enough to say that, but more of a herbal sweetness and tangy sweetness.
I'm going to go with quite a lot of barnyard. A lot of hay. I get the tang, but the tang for me is coming through as barnyard.
Yeah. Okay. We could definitely call that barnyard. I think it's more of a deep herbal note.
Yeah, a deep herbal note, a decomposing sort of composty kind of a note. I think is absolutely there. I'm going with a straight cut today, which is a risk because this cutter is getting a bit blunt.
The best I can do is earthy spice.
Earthy spice. Well, look, you're not far off.
On a cold draw.
Yeah.
Beautiful draw. Absolutely gorgeous.
The construction on last week's as well was superb. Okay, you've gone with a V cut.
Yeah. First time in a long time.
I got for a straight cut.
Yeah, same. Yeah, my cutter is definitely blunt. I'm getting heaps of little tiny bits of tobacco in my mouth.
You like big things in your mouth, don't you?
Well, that's something that you can commentate on.
Yeah, obviously observation.
That's yeah, we'll leave that one alone. My mother-in-law might be watching. Not that that's ever stopped me before.
Sorry, mother-in-law. Your son-in-law is a bit of a target. It's good for target shooting, so I'm sorry. I apologize.
My mother-in-law tolerates a lot on this show. I've got to be honest. It's amazing that she still tunes in.
That's she needs a medal, man. We need to get her a medal. She's tough.
Well, instead of a medal, what I actually do is I drag her around the country and sometimes around the planet. She came with us to Hong Kong a few years ago. She's been all sorts of places with us. She's going again to Sydney with us for a conference this coming weekend. So I don't know if that's a prize or a punishment, but that's what we give her.
That's it, man. Demo is dying.
Yeah.
Toasty. Bit of pepper. I can't differentiate what sort of pepper it is though, or the light up.
All right. So I'm drinking a dark ale, which is not my normal drink. So that may alter my palate a little bit. Flavors may come through a little bit differently to what I'm used to. But for me, that's actually an incredibly smooth opening. Earth tones, vegetation, no real pepper for me, and not a lot of spice. If there's any spice there, it's very, very mild. It's the sweet spices, not the dark spices, not the
no spice at all.
Sharp spices, yeah.
No spice.
For me, it's a light hay. It is pretty much what I had on the nose, but the barnyard is a bit less pronounced now than what it was. It's a bit more of what you were describing, Omar.
Yeah,
a little bit of hay with a little bit of tang.
Earth, tang, and sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
Put it simply. It's got a little bit of creaminess to it. It's not dry. It's got a creaminess to it for sure.
On a blind taste test, I would guess this was a Connecticut.
Yes, sir.
At this point, there's enough of that cream, the butter, the fresh scone kind of feeling to it. I would have guessed this was a Connecticut.
Yes, sir. I agree. It's very smooth at the moment. It's very smooth at the moment. I had that the other day, the same cigar. Hasn't changed much since for the past couple of days. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I
had one of these.
The cigar you smoked ahead of time, it ragged me up in a desperate panic that you didn't have tonight's cigar.
Well, I smoked my other one of these just the other day, actually, while I was doing a live on Facebook. And it was an absolute ripper. It really was one of those ones that came to an end, and I was just sitting there going, no, please don't end. Please don't end. But that was on a beautiful, warm, sunny afternoon with just a very gentle breeze blowing, sitting outside and enjoying my own wonderful company. Whether it still tastes any good sitting in a garage in the middle of the night, having to tolerate the two of you, remains to be seen.
I think I'm tasting a sort of straw, damp earth note to it.
Yeah, that's really what I had on the nose early on before we lit, and then the straw definitely is probably the dominant flavor for me at the moment on the opening.
Okay, so I'm not too far off the mark.
No, you're not too far off.
Effortless straw, maybe a little bit too loose, perhaps.
No, I wouldn't say so. I think it's spot on. It's very reminiscent of the 3x3, very reminiscent of a Davidoff.
Beautiful draw, absolutely beautiful draw.
Yeah. Omar.
Yes, sir.
If I invested in a hat for you, do you promise you'd wear it?
Yes.
Because you are aware that we're trying to keep people watching, right?
Yes.
Like coming back a second time. And
that's why I'm here.
I reckon Should be a fez, Turkish fez. You know,
I reckon that's exactly the way to go. That is exactly the way to go. So Stuart is asking about how do I go about getting some cigars from you guys in time for CPAC? Well, you'll be pleased to know that I'm going to be swinging past Damo's place on my way to CPAC. And so I might be able to sort something out for you and for Tim if he's interested, Stuart. So have a chat with Tim, find out if he's interested, and let me know how many you need, and I will sort something out for you. Oh. So we commented about last week's Hammer and Sickle, the fact that it was just one of those cigars where you felt like you'd smoked a cigar. You just sat there and went, yes, this is it. Like, this is what it's about. I'm already partway there with this one. This one has got me there in half the time.
Not even that.
Not even that. Just straight away. This is what a cigar is supposed to be.
I tell you what, if they don't relaunch the business, it'd be a business you'd want to relaunch for them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You'd be like, no, find an AK-47 and hold it to their heads and be like, I ain't letting up until you relaunch this.
That's it.
Good old Soviet style business. It is funny though how
KGB torture.
Bit of persuasion. No. The KGB doesn't exist anymore, Damo. Putin said so. They have the FSB instead, right? That's
right.
It's completely different. It's staffed by the same people using all the same methods and techniques, but it's completely different.
Right. Okay. Different letters.
Different letters, 100%. Well, hey, if it's good enough for the Americans. Okay, so the foot smoke it's a couple of shades darker than the foot smoke from last week's cigar. You can definitely smell the difference between the Connecticut and this week's natural, even if the taste on this natural is very light, very Connecticut-esque. The foot smoke is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
But there's definitely more body to it. There's definitely more flavor.
Is there a little bit of sourness to that foot smoke? Comparative to last week?
I can see where you're getting that from. That wouldn't have crossed my mind without you pointing it out. But now with that in mind, thinking about it as I whiff, yeah, I can see where you're getting that from. A little bit of a twist to it.
Still beautiful foot smoke though, like last week.
100%. If that's what my house smelled like because I was a cigar smoker, I wouldn't even apologize to people who arrived. I'd be like, "Oh, you want to come to my house? Sure, that'll be $5 entry fee for the aroma." Just what do you even say?
Light texture to the smoke. Like, I'm not getting a lot of mouthfeel out of that smoke, but there's still plenty of it.
There's a lot of it. I feel like I am getting some texture from it. There's plenty of smoke, but I'm just by default, and I don't know if this is a good habit or a bad, to be honest, but on this sort of a ring gauge, by default, I automatically do kind of a half puff followed by a puff, and then I let it rest. So I'm not double puffing, but I just sort of do a little one and then do a full puff, and I'm getting a lot of a good amount of smoke out of it.
Absolutely no problem with the smoke. It's generating a lot of smoke. Not a foot smoke, but in terms of when you have a puff on it, it's got a
when you
decent
puff.
kind of smoke. Yeah, it's a decent kind of smoke. And I thought it might be a bit drier on the mouth, but it's funny. It's got a dry element. It's got a moist. I mean, it's creamy and dry at the same time.
It's funny because last week's cigar I was insisting was savory, and the two of you were insisting was quite sweet.
Yeah,
I'm on the same page with you this week. But I definitely expected it to be drier. I thought it was going to be.
Is it a little bit? Well,
sorry.
I was just going to say, is the dryness you're talking about a little bit like that brittle toffee, like that sort of burnt brittle toffee? You know how that's got like a dry note to it? Because that's sort of what I'm trying to pick out at the moment, what that dryness is like.
Sorry, could the Sudafed just be quiet for a second and let Damo start talking again? Is that
right?
Is that possible? Look, Omar, it's obvious that Damo can't taste or smell tonight, so I want to share a tasting note with you because he won't be able to appreciate it. You know, the clovers that grow in just sort of household backyard, front yard grass, right? You get the 3-leaf clovers. And sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get the 4-leaf clovers. But in Australia, usually that 4th leaf is really small.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, if you pick all of those 4th leaves and you dry them like oregano, and then you crush them up and mix them in with just the right amount of black pepper, that's what I'm getting. Shade-grown 4th leaf clover.
Yes. And does that involve myself, which is G, urinating on them before you smell it?
I did wonder what that was. It always had this tang.
Yeah.
It explains so much.
That is absolutely just gorgeous. It's not even stacking dimes. It's like stacking sheets of tissue paper.
Yeah. I could not agree more. And last week, again, we barely commented on the construction quality, which is usually a very good sign.
Yes.
These are well-made cigars. This is a beautiful flavor profile.
Well, back in 2015, which is a little whiles ago, Cigar Aficionado rated this 94 out of 100, scoring it rather, and it got cigar number 11 out of 25 top cigars of the year.
Yeah, wow.
Missed the top 10 by that much.
But how obvious is it though? Like, you can just tell. I've had other top 10s that you're like, really? That made the top 10? This one, you're like, oh yeah, totally, I get that. Well, Stuart, if you can figure out which of those leaves was the 4th one, pick them, dry them, and then shandy them in with just a little bit of pepper. Tastes exactly like this cigar.
Oh man, this is good. This is very good,
isn't it?
Yeah.
I can just feel we're going to run out of things to say because it's just going to be sitting here just like, oh yeah.
And that's the best thing to say, man.
Please tell me we have more of these, Damo.
Yeah, a lot more.
Not a lot. Not a lot.
I bought 2 boxes.
Oh, really? Damn it. These Sydney ciders really look after each other.
Just teasing you, Topher. Commie's got a lot of boxes. Just relax.
Look, let's be honest, Topher. It's got nothing to do with looking after Sydney ciders. It's got to do with ending the incessant whining, whinging, blabbering, crying, pleading, and begging over the phone that I get.
Yeah.
So it's just like, just imagine Omar crying hysterically like a little girl, begging, willing to sell anything for more cigars. It's just like, it is that bad. It's just
the thing is,
cigars to him just to stop it. You know.
You think he doesn't call me? I can tell you the things that he offers me are much more interesting than the things that he offers you. I'm going to leave it there, right? Right, because he knows it's a lot more trouble for me to get cigars up there. So he offers me some really interesting stuff.
Hey, just remember, your mother-in-law is listening, so you might get a divorce tomorrow. So don't let me say nothing.
Look, we're not. Mostly because I don't think, if she was given the option, she'd probably opt not to be divorced. She'd opt to be a widow.
Oh,
right. And I don't want to seed that. Yeah, I don't want to seed that thought into her mind. Because when she puts her mind to something, she's pretty determined. She gets it done. So I might leave that one alone.
Yeah, good idea, dude.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, Stuart's asking, what is my whiskey tonight? My whiskey tonight, Stuart, is a dark ale, the Moondog Mac Daddy, which I selected in Omar's honor. Omar Ohms Mac G. I'm having some Mac Daddy tonight. It's big, it's bold, it's black. It's not Omar. However, when I do run out of that, I've got some Glenfiddich 12 to back that up, which should go pretty well with this flavor profile. Actually, it's one of my. I've got a couple of sort of go-to standard sort of drinks that I like to have in the cupboard, and that's one of them. It should go pretty well with this. Cigar Man Sam wants your thoughts, Omar. Not on him, just to be clear. Not on him. No one wants to hear that. Just on the cigar.
Yeah, very good cigar, dude. I did some notes on the previous one I smoked, and it's definitely not different. The only difference I had was in a final third, but we haven't got to that. Sammy, I highly recommend it, dude. Highly recommend it.
The good news is, Sam, he actually has a whole box of those, right? So next time you go visit, you can smoke at least 4 or 5 of them to make sure what he's telling you is true.
A bit of quality control.
And he's also got a box of last week's one, so you need to smoke at least 4 or 5 of those to compare it to last week as well.
Oh, that is if they're still left when I see him.
I'm pretty sure Cigar Man Sam is already in the car on his way to your place. Yeah. Just got to consciously make sure I don't smoke it too much. Just let it cool down. Let it sit. It stays beautifully lit. The construction quality is flawless. Just let it sit.
Super true.
Look at that. Just stacking dimes. Look at that.
Wouldn't it be so lovely if you could design your own cigar, but not just stick with one particular brand, like take the techniques that Davidoff use and take the tobacco that, say, Dumbarton Tobacco and Trust use, and then take some of the flavor barrel age profiles that Perdomo use, and then maybe put some of the new traits of the warped cigars and just throw it all into one cigar and just have the perfect smoke.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can do that, Damo. It's called start your own fucking cigar company, you lazy. I won't finish that sentence. There was one more word on that sentence, but my mother-in-law watches. So start your own cigar company, mate. What's the problem?
The Australian taxes, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's true. Tehelim is asking the big questions tonight. What happened to Omar's cigar boxes that are normally behind him? Answer, he smoked them.
He got desperate and wanted more of them off me. I was wondering why he wanted so many bloody boxes.
So Damo made me wait today for 5 hours to get some cigars off him. I called him last night and said, I need to pick up cigars. Yeah, I'll be there. Call him 11 o'clock. Yeah, I'll be there. Until 5 o'clock, he made me wait this bad.
Damo, we agreed that we were going to make Omar wait for at least 24 hours. What happened? You went soft.
Look, it's when Omar gets desperate for cigars, he can't think of anything else, and you give him explicit instructions, and it just goes in one ear out the other because he's just focused on the cigars, not the actual instructions of how to get to the cigars. And so he's sort of like a dog going ball, and it's like the dog's just going ball, 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 ball.
Hey, be careful! I gotta pay you for a lot of cigars, so calm the fuck down.
Well, you know what they say. If you owe the bank $100,000, you have a problem. If you owe the bank $100 million, the bank has a problem.
Exactly.
So Omar's just trying to make sure that he owes you so much that it's your problem and not his.
Nah. He's a brother, man.
Hey, two can play at that game. There'll be a chronic cigar shortage all of a sudden for Omar.
Because I dried out Cigar Man Sam already, so.
Yeah.
Hey, Omar, just so you know, Don't believe anything you see on the internet. I'm not coming to Sydney. I won't be in your area. I don't have cigars available for you. Okay. Just
come on, dude.
Just ignore what you see on Facebook and stuff next weekend.
Okay. I'm trying.
Tell you what, that dark ale is going an absolute treat with this cigar. Absolute treat.
Well, this week I'm not doing an Omar coffee. I'm doing just a normal, regular Damo coffee. So it's going a treat. Finding the coffee. The coffee's a little bit bland because I'm all blocked up, but yeah, it's doing its job. Speaking of which, I picked up your 2 massive cartons of coffee and dropped them off.
Our 2 massive cartons of coffee. Yes.
Well, I'm the silent behind the scenes one. You know, it's like Eddie. I'm God.
There you go. You're back now.
You're breaking up, Damo. I didn't hear nothing you said, bro.
Hey, I'm back again.
He said something about being silent, and then he went all quiet. So I figure it must have been deliberate.
Right. Yes. So they're listening. They're watching. No, I just said like any good production crew. It's never the production crew that get the glory. It's always the performer on stage.
Oh, Damo.
Listen, I'll be the dancing monkey. You do the real work behind the scenes. Oh, one down. One down. So Stuart says, hey, I make cigar box guitars. What's the chance of getting some from you? Pretty good, I'd reckon, over time, Stuart. Stuart's
haven't got any over. I literally took everything. Like, I mean, there is nothing left. But
who, sorry?
Definitely happy to share the love and keep Omar locked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now Tim has sprung me here. He says, "I see how it is. No slow chat last night, but here you are. Can't believe you'd rather hang out with Ohms." No, mate. I'd rather have been having a cigar on my own time last night. But you know, you make agreements and you have to keep them. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Does the dark ale have a high charcoal taste? No, not this one. Not this one. It's not a porter. It doesn't quite have the chocolate of a porter, but it's definitely a darker flavor profile. It's a roasty kind of flavor profile on this one. But I got to say, the Moondog Stout, I absolutely love. Now, this is the dark ale, which I am enjoying. Excuse me. The Moondog Stout, that's a beer. If you haven't had it, that is an absolutely fantastic beer. There endeth the lesson. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, Stuart. I've got a challenge for you, Stuart.
Dames, you feeling good, better, or what?
Not yet. Not yet. I just need to go to bed for a few days and not do anything.
Stuart, can you make a cigar box guitar that is actually doubles as a cigar rest? You can stand it on its end, and beside the strings, you can slide a cigar in. And as the cigar smokes, it comes out the end after all the frets and everything. Is that logistically possible? Can that be physically done? Because that would be a lot less creepy than this porcelain version of the same idea that Damo gave to me, which I think was supposed to carry some subliminal messages, but I'm just not clear on what they were.
I think I gave one of those, one of our viewers or subscribers, didn't I?
I'm not sure. Maybe. We've given away a bunch of cool stuff to different people over the last 2 years.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wonder how many of our a few of our subscribers now should have received their bonus ashtray with their orders.
I saw one at my father-in-law's house the other day. Looking very nice, just sitting there, not in his smoking area, just sitting out somewhere else to be seen.
Oh.
So Helen, things are going well. We've had over 1,200 people have watched it in. I've watched it in cinemas now, which is great, and hundreds upon hundreds of thousands have watched it online. So, yeah, it's been good.
Interesting question, sort of coming off the back of that. Since you've been airing it in the cinemas, are you finding that those people are going away and sharing the online link with other people, and you're starting to see more views of the online version now? Again,
the online version has picked up a bit of momentum lately. I'm getting reports in from Google saying, "Oh, you've had this many people search for Battleground Melbourne. This many people have gone to the Battleground Melbourne page after doing a search." Blah blah blah, and the numbers are growing very very quickly, which is nice. But the main thing that people are getting out of those in-person cinema screenings is just that sense of solidarity. Watching Battleground Melbourne on your own can be a bit isolating. It can be pretty confronting, especially for those of us that lived it, that remember a lot of those events. It can be tough. But sitting there in a room with other like-minded people, some of whom were also there and also lived the same experiences, really changes it. And the overwhelming feedback that I'm getting is that people are finding it kind of liberating, and they're finding that they're able to kind of heal a little bit and move on a little bit as a result of having been there and watched it in that sort of group environment, which is nice. That's that's not something that I expected to come out of this, but it's been a really nice little silver lining.
I saw something online the other day, and I think it might have been on. I can't remember whether it was Arvi or someone else's Twitter feed, that it was brought out in a court case in Canada that the decisions for the harsh lockdowns and travel restrictions was not based on any evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, and that day will eventually come in Victoria as well, because they weren't based on any evidence whatsoever, but it could take quite some time for the right court case to come and for the right arguments to be made and for the right evidence to be demanded in order to then get that ruling.
Is yours still pending?
Yeah, all my charges are still pending. Yeah.
So for what you're saying about people watching the actual doco at a cinemas with a bunch of people together, it's basically, it has no, I mean, I watched it online on my own. It has absolutely no correlation, because the energies of so many humans together, and they're vibing together, it would be phenomenal. It's not comparable. Incomparable. You can read it.
It's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Completely different experience. Now, on an unrelated note, Omar, I can't help but notice you haven't showed us your cigar for a little while.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
It's bonkers. I hit it accidentally in the ash. It's still going, but it's been.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was expecting to see that you'd been a clumsy numbnuts like Damo and dropped your ash, and that I'd won the ash challenge. So I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed, actually. I really did think I had you cornered there, but you've got out of that one. Well,
if you know me, when I do it, I show it first before anyone figures it out.
I might be a little bit ahead of you guys. Is there a vegetative note in there at all?
Has been a slight one all the way through, just that slightly composty earth tone, but it's been a background note, not a prominent one. The problem for me now, Omar, is that my ash has just developed a very distinct kink at a very specific point, and looking at it, I fear that I am very shortly going to come second in the ash challenge. So I was really banking on you lifting up your cigar and it missing its ash, but that was a swing and a miss. I screwed that one up.
So if Omar was a gentleman, he would have knocked it off before he lifted it up to the screen.
Here we go. Yeah. Is this going to be it?
Yeah,
I knew it. I didn't even bump it. I knew it. I just knew it.
What do you mean you knew it?
No, the way the ash had begun to separate, I knew as soon as I rewarmed that cherry and it expanded, it was just going to drop.
It's quite bumpy, mine as well, but dude, I'm talking about the smoke. It's you said at the beginning, I'm like thinking about it now. We haven't talked about the cigar. We're enjoying it so much. We're just going, wow, this is good. Now, no matter what the fuck you say, it's good. It's
what do you say? Yeah.
That's all we're saying. It's really incredible. It's really incredible.
So,
but there are differences. Now I'm picking up a lot. There are differences for sure. Absolutely for sure. I think it's bigger body, more earth tones, not as sweet as the last one, which is not a good or a bad thing. But it's got more of a variation coming through from the first light up till now. Yeah. It's got a whole lot of variations.
This I'm finding a more interesting cigar. Last week's cigar was phenomenal, but this is more interesting. There's a little bit more going on here that's just keeping me thinking and noticing a little bit more. I'd say now the foot smoke has evolved into a really, for me at least, a clear kind of roasted nut, which wasn't present earlier. We hadn't really sort of talked about nuts in relation to this cigar, but it's quite clear now. For me, this is a heavily roasted almond, like a dry, crunchy, crispy roasted almond.
Yep. Wait a second. I get the whole almond skin thing, if that makes sense.
Sure, a little bit more bitter. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
the almond skin thing, but it's often come with a creaminess after that it doesn't have.
Yeah. That's
creaminess afterwards it doesn't have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it's a really dry roasted. It's you have raw almonds, which I do quite regularly, and that has a really creamy finish. Yeah. You get your usual kind of salted roasted almonds, but then you can get like your almond slivers that have been roasted and they're crunchy and there's no oil left in them. And that's really what I feel like this is now.
I definitely get that. And I think that's
my perception on it is that it's a little bit more like slightly over roasted peanuts. When peanuts get a little bit on the dark side and they're a little bit just start that tad burnt.
Yeah. I mean, some of us are actually good cooks and we don't burn our peanuts, but I'll take your word for it.
Not sure. I'm not 200% because peanuts have a very distinctive flavor and it doesn't have that oozing distinctive peanut flavor. What I'm saying is like, you go more of like almond, if you want to call that almond skin, plus the earth tones,
that's all still there.
Yeah, you kind of mix it up. And it's got like this still lingering tang. Something that lingers, but you don't talk about it. You don't want it to touch upon because it just lingers.
And that definitely built up. That tang definitely increased after I lost my ash. So I'd be interested when you do get to that point, Omar. I'd be interested to see what happens for you with the transition now to no ash. Now, Stuart's asked a good question here. So Stuart and Tim, who's also watching, we've spent a bit of time together lately traveling around. They've been really helping out with a lot of the cinema showings. And they're a little bit interested in cigars, but not particularly experienced. So Stuart, yes, as a general rule, you want to lose the ash as few times as possible because that little bit of insulation, that centimeter of insulation makes it a lot easier to keep the cigar burning at a nice even rate and a nice even temperature. Having like, 2 inches of ash, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Once you've got more than about a centimeter, that's about all you need. But obviously each time you lose the ash, you're losing it down to the burn. And that exposes the burn, and now you've got to build the ash up again. So the aim is to try and not drop the ash at all, but there are some cigars where it's just not possible. And so dropping the ash as few times as you reasonably can is generally
and
how
most people... The ash drops.
The flavor changes each time for sure.
Generally speaking, it's not always the case, but generally speaking, the flavors that you get once the ash drop aren't as nice as what they are when the ash is there. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons for that is because once you've exposed that hot cherry, you're getting more air into it when you're breathing. So it actually burns hotter for the first little bit until the ash builds up again. And the trick of smoking any cigar is you're basically playing this game, cat and mouse game with it. You're trying to smoke it enough to keep it alight, but as seldom as possible to let it almost be as cool as it can humanly get without actually extinguishing.
Yeah, without going out.
And another interesting thing, just quite irrelevant to this smoke or the conversation, but it just popped into mind randomly. You know how often we go and have conversation with fellow cigar smokers and random peoples that is that Cuban. You don't fucking need a Cuban cigars if you're gonna get a cigar like that. I'm not saying fuck Cubans, which I don't mind saying anyway. But this is a cigar. You know, you have the cigar, and we just gotta shut the fuck up. And where's it from? Just enjoy it.
You know what?
Yeah.
All Cuban cigars were like this week and last week's cigar. Cubans would probably be some of the best cigars of the world, but unfortunately, they're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, you know what? Probably one point in history they were.
Yeah, no doubt. I think 90s was the last time. It hasn't been for 22 years at least. A dude walked in, as a gentleman walked in, and we're talking about, so, oh my God, you smoking a cigar? Obviously, I'm smoking a cigar outside my shop, which is a standard operating procedures. Anyway, oh my God, I'm so sorry I disturbed your cigar. I said, no problems. Trying to help him. I goes, by the way, my father-in-law loves cigars. So he's like, I said, Cuban cigars, man, they don't have to be the cigar that you're going to smoke or wanted to smoke and blah, 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 blah. Forget about the origin. Look at cigars, smoke it, enjoy it. And who goddamn cares where it come from?
Yeah, 100%. So Tim's now. Sorry.
That non-Cuban cigars have to be twice. In reality, they have to be twice as good as a Cuban cigar to only be classified half as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a funny old world. So Tim's saying Stuart has a bottle of gospel whiskey. I was wondering if you guys had Tabernacle David cigars, could have a biblical night. No, but what we do have is Ave Marias. So if you're happy to go a little bit Catholic.
Well, Genesis Project.
Genesis, there you go. Genesis the project, that's true.
Yeah.
So you got a few options there, Tim.
And they've got the Ave Maria 5-pack. There's
the Morning Star 5-pack.
Morning Star. I think one of them is Conquistador.
Mm-hmm.
The dark one in there. There's Immaculata. I'd have to go back and have a look, but there's five different cigars in that pack.
Yeah, beautiful tasting pack.
Actually, you got me intrigued. I'm going to have to go and have a quick squeeze and see what those five in the pack are now.
So Cigar Man Sam's trying to be funny, but he's obviously been learning from Omar because it's just not. What side of the peanut? He asks. You're a peanut, mate. Seriously, come on.
He's funny, isn't he, Cigar Man Sam? He's kind of funny,
Tim says, "Can't Catholic. My parents would kill me." Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, you'll have to steer away from the Ave Marias then, or maybe just tell him that burning them and smoking them is like an act of defiance against the Catholic Church.
Oh, good idea. Why not?
Yeah, and then you can just
Was it Spurgeon who got confronted about smoking cigars, and Spurgeon, in a church service, he's going to go home and smoke a cigar to the glory of God.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I believe it was him who was also asked about moderation by another famous preacher of the time. And he said, "I'll quit my cigars when you quit this." And he tapped the guy on his very large belly. I can't think of the name of the preacher, but he was a traveling preacher who was a particularly obese man.
Wigglesworth, I think.
Might have been Wigglesworth. That rings a bell. Very, very fat. And he tapped him on the belly. He was also asked, I think it was him, or it may have been Mark Twain, I don't recall, was asked about moderation in smoking. And he said, yes, moderation means only having one at a time.
I love that. That's a very good answer. That's a 10 out of 10 answer.
So one of the other ones in that pack is called Lionheart. And the other one is Argentum. So there you go.
Yeah. It's a good little taster, that is. But I've got to say, of the Ave Marias, the Immaculata is hands down my favorite. And that Bellicoso Vitola that we've got, absolutely brilliant. And that hasn't been one of the packs yet.
No.
Okay, so this is definitely intensifying now. Getting a little bit of heat on the tip of the tongue. I was going to say a white pepper, but I'm not so sure that it is. I'll sit on that for a minute to figure out what that is, but there's a bit of a pepper on the tip of the tongue. The flavor profile is definitely deepened and darkened. The nuts are gone. The hay is gone. The hay's long gone. That disappeared quite a while ago, actually. It's darkened into like a campfire. If you were somewhere where there was this mingling of fresh bush air and that vegetative kind of element that's still there, with a campfire in the distance, that's the blending that I'm getting here. There's fresh, there's vegetative, and there's also roasted, burnt charcoal, both merging into one.
Kind of a bit different. I think probably it's the ash, but for me, it's going a little bit like a Connecticut with the tang on it. Tang is going a little bit more pronounced. It's got sweetness. It's got herbal notes or earthy tones, whichever you want to call that. You can't pick it, but it's got this dark, earthy green notes, which are definitely sweet. It kind of almost reminds me of that something kind of a herbal thing, like a salad, green salad, but you got molasses on it, like a light tone of molasses on it.
Yeah.
Run through molasses. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
So you haven't got any of those sort of campfire tones coming through for you at the moment? Yeah, okay, interesting. I wonder if that's the ash, if it's just because I'm further through, or if it's just the difference in the cigars.
Yeah, either or.
Yeah, could be any.
Yeah.
I think I could get an ashy note there somewhere.
Through all the mucus.
Sort of like a charred timber note.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not in your face. It's not like you're standing over a charcoal barbecue. It's off to the side somewhere, and there's just a bit of that smoke is drifting through and mixing with everything else.
Yes. This has been good. The second, third has been amazing.
It's man. This has been excellent. Now, I will say on last week's cigar, the final third did turn a little bit on me.
Oh, really?
The first 2/3 were phenomenal. Final third, bit of a turn. Not as pleasant.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what this one does.
Yeah.
You're both always looking down when I do my smoke rings. It's really frustrating.
It's a figure of like, you kind of like deliberate on your smoke and you think.
Yeah. You're deep in thought.
That's it.
Missing all my moments of glory.
Hey, you never, and I said never in capital bold underline, ever want to have a smoke with Cigar Man Sam, because he does at 25,000 rings per smoke. Like every time he throws out smoke, it's like a millions of smoke rings, dude. It's actually annoying to watch. He does it with ease, nigga.
I fired Aaron for far less. Of course, I don't want to have a cigar with Cigar Man Sam.
Yeah.
Well, look, I might not be able to blow smoke rings with cigars, but I can toot my own horn. I've blown plenty of smoke rings shooting pyro product in my life.
Yeah, I could believe that.
Just about every fireworks job I've done, I think I've shot a smoke ring somewhere in the show.
Well, the wife's away. The kids are supposed to be in bed, and I can hear one of them going nuts in there. So I'm going to go and deal with that. Give me a sec. I'll be back in a minute.
Is there a slight floral note you're getting on the foot smoke at all? Just a very faint floral.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to smell the smoke, and it's definitely got, you know, that like jasmine, elderflower kind of.
Yep.
Bit like jasmine, elderflower. It's
definitely.
Yeah,
I was thinking more, not so much jasmine, sort of more, sort of elderflower, honeysuckle.
Yeah, definitely have the tone of elderflower for sure.
Yep. Well, I'm pretty impressed how much I'm getting, despite not being able to really smell or taste too much.
Yeah, that's been pretty good. That's definitely good. So,
I'll tell you what, mate, cupping coffee this afternoon at all. Oh my goodness.
That would have been painful, man.
Oh, mate, I was having it's like, because normally when I don't know if our viewers have ever seen coffee cupping done, but when you prepare coffee for cupping, and cupping's the terminology they use in the coffee industry for tasting coffee to make sure that the roast is right, the blend is right, the grind is right. You actually get a spoon and you actually slurp it. And the idea is that you aspirate the coffee, so it's sort of like a reverse spray into your mouth. And the idea is, as you're spraying it into your mouth, air's coming in and it's sort of vaporizing more of the flavors of the coffee over your olfactory senses. And normally, you just do one or two to get your feel for the coffee, and then you might come back and do another one or two just to confirm it. Mate, I was going through the whole damn cup just to try and work out what was going on. I went through about 4 cups of coffee trying to get the stuff right this afternoon. So, yes. Mind you, that after all that coffee, I felt a lot better.
So you're feeling buzzed?
Well, I was. It wore off. I was amazing how quickly it wore off after 4 cups of coffee.
Yeah, right. So Tim and Stuart are both very excited about the brew coffee. And so when they were traveling with me, I introduced them to the virtues of a wanky Melbourne coffee called a Magic, and double ristretto with equal part milk. And they drank it. And it was the first time Tim had coffee without sugar, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So
welcome to the dark side.
Yeah, well, literally, yeah. We'll make a convert out of him yet.
Look, I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand with coffee is, for quite a long period of Australia's history, we weren't roasting coffee locally. We were importing it from overseas. And by the time it got here, it was old, it was stale, it was bitter, and often it was burnt. And so we naturally added milk and sugar to it to make it more palatable and pleasant to drink. And we've come a long way in the coffee industry. And, there's so many coffee roasters locally. So now we've got good quality coffee, fresh. And it's breaking that habit that we've had of adding milk and sugar to coffee and actually starting to taste coffee for what it is,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and that's where brew comes in, ladies and gentlemen. Infomercial time. Brewaustralia.com.au. You can get your very own Damo blended and roasted coffee. Tim, if you ever order a soy latte, I will know that the time has come to put you down. Okay? I won't make a big deal out of it. I'll just come up behind you with a shotgun, put you out of your misery, and that'll be that. Okay? Just rest assured, I've got your back, buddy. I've got your back.
It's actually funny when soy lattes are really starting to kick off, especially with all the trendy mums and babies going to the cafes. With the mums groups that all come along with their prams, and that all have their soy latte decafs. And the coffee industry actually abbreviated, because they scribble down the notes on the cups or on the little post-it stickers that go on the thing. They used to just abbreviate it to LSD. So latte soy decaf.
Yeah. Never soy. Soon you'll be on the double ristretto. That's right. That's my next step, is to just be drinking a double ristretto without any milk at all.
Yeah, double Riz is the best.
Yeah, I'm not quite ready for it yet, and you've got to know that the place you're getting it from knows what they're doing. But if they do, it's just brilliant.
Or even a macchiato. You could start off macchiato and make your way to double Riz.
Yeah.
You're 90% of the way there anyway if you're going from a Mac to a Riz.
Yeah.
Mind you, some coffees actually taste better as a full espresso as opposed to a double ristretto, and vice versa.
It depends. It depends. I mean, the fat content, you're never going to love in all coffees. I mean, double Riz on a Kenyan I never liked it. It just, it just, that's such a sharpness in it already. Kenyan coffee is just known to be sharp. It's just, dude, can't do it.
Yeah.
Don't want to do it. But with a Colombian, it's really nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes when I go to a cafe, here's a little interesting insider tip for viewers. So all cafes will have what's called the house blend. And generally speaking, the house blend is usually made up from 2 to 4 beans on average. And it's usually blended so that as the availability of the coffee changes.
Right, he's left us hanging.
Hello?
He's left us hanging.
I know.
The coffee cartel has shut him down. He's about to give away the deep, dark secrets of the industry. And they're like, no, push the button, cut him off.
Oh, you back?
Is he?
Not doing well.
Nope, he ain't back. Hey, now he's back.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
I thought the coffee cartel had come and grabbed you there for a second.
Yeah, possibly letting out the secrets. So the house blend is not usually made up of beans that are good on their own. They usually work together to produce a good profile. But a lot of the higher end cafes will do a single origin coffee. And the single origin coffee has to be a much higher grade coffee to stand on its own. And they usually serve that single as a espresso or as a long black. And what I sometimes will do if I'm going to a cafe, if I feel like a milk coffee and a black coffee, I'll usually order same side by side. So I'll order a latte on the single as well as an espresso or a stretto or a long black. And it's just really interesting to actually taste the differences, and you'll get an understanding of what the milk does to the coffee and how it changes the flavor. Yeah. And it's just like like we're learning flavor tasting with cigars. It's just another little trick when you're going to a cafe to learn more flavor tasting skills in your coffee.
Well, it's the same with whiskeys. You know, people look down on blended whiskeys because they're a blend of different whiskeys that weren't good enough to stand up on their own, and that's true. But if someone knows what they're doing and can taste each one and go, I can see what's good about that, and I can see what's not good enough, but I'm going to combine it with that, which is going to offset blah blah blah, and come through to a profile that's actually really nice to drink. In the end, you've just got to judge it by whether you're actually enjoying it. And there are there we go. Finally, he's lost it. There are a couple of blends, like you get something like a Dimple 15 year. Okay, it's a blend, but boy, it's a good blend. And that's just a staple of mine that I've got. I've got a bottomless bottle of Dimple 15 that never quite runs out because I always buy another bottle before the other bottle is finished. And all cigars are blends. There's no, well, I mean, I was about to say there's no such thing as a single origin cigar. There are cigars that are from a single farm. They're not common. But the vast majority of cigars, they're getting tobacco from a few different countries, a few different regions, in order to find that balance of flavors between all of them. So I've got nothing against a blended coffee. I just want a nice coffee.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I just put it out there to encourage people to try these things, because what you're doing is you're building up your flavor memories and your flavor experiences and your understanding of flavor profiles. And what that will help you to learn is when you go to a cafe that might have 3 or 4 different coffees available, you will have a better understanding with that background memory. What ones you like? Do I like a Kenyan? Do I like a Brazil? Do I like an Ethiopian coffee? And then when you choose to go and have that double Riz, you'll know, actually, I really like the sweet fruitiness of an Ethiopian, so I'm going to have a double Riz on the Ethiopian. And it's just good knowledge to build up an experience, you know?
Yeah.
That's affirmative. I think the fair thing, or the good or bad thing about the whole taste profiles, is that unfortunately or fortunately, all individuals taste and smell things differently, completely differently. And on this note, I think, you're going to have people never going to like a blend or vice versa. So it's just going to be, it is what it is. And you appreciate a certain type, and I'm never going to smell what you do. I just take a pill and enjoy it.
We're all different, but I take comfort in the fact that I'm right and everyone else is wrong. So that's what really keeps me going.
In your own stupid dumb way, which we know. That's fine.
No. I'm right and everyone else is wrong. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, the other interesting bit of information that's totally pointless, I'm going to say it anyway, is when they have coffee judging competitions, they'll actually have a session called Judge Calibration, where they'll actually bring out some coffees that aren't in the competition, and they get everybody to taste them, score them, and judge them on each of their attributes, on acidity, on balance, on body, on bitterness, and all these different bits. And basically what they try to do is they try to get all of the judges on the same page, scoring equally across the coffee, so that when they go into the competition, even though everyone's tasting differently, everyone's sort of been calibrated.
Scoring.
So they go, that was, that's going to be 6 or that's going to be an 8. You get a general consensus amongst that group of judges, and then you go straight into competition judging, so that everyone's judging as equally as possible.
Yeah, right. So Stuart, you're dead right. Different leaf types. So there's different types of tobacco, but then there's also the leaves near the top of the plant get a lot more sun than the leaves further down. There's different regions for growing that have different amounts of sunshine, different types of soil, etc. And then there's all the aging process, how many times they ferment, what they ferment in. Like there's just so many different variations. And that's kind of the fun of it. Like red wine, yes, but I just can't get into red wine. I just don't care. I don't care enough to get into red wine. Whereas tobacco, cigars, I can enjoy those. I can get into that.
Well, actually, Perdomo Lot 23 is one of those cigars where all of the tobacco not only comes from the one plantation, but it actually comes from the same lot. So the filler, the binder, and the wrapper have all come from this one lot within the farm, so that you've got a true single origin cigar.
And that's the one that I was thinking of when I corrected myself before. I was about to say that all cigars are a blend, and I went, well, actually, not quite all. There is such a thing as a single origin cigar, but they are very rare. And the Lot 23, we had that in pack 1 or pack 3, I can't remember, but pretty early on.
It was, I think it might have been pack 1.
It might have been there in pack 1 too. I think we had it towards the end of pack 1, I think. That's just an absolutely sensational cigar and an example of what can happen when you've just got incredible tobacco coming off your field. But there's a lot of tobacco in the world that goes into really nice cigars, but if you tried to turn that into a single origin, it would not be a pleasant cigar at all. It's only good in that blend with other tobaccos.
And a lot of cigars, not all, but a lot of cigars will generally have about 3 tobaccos in the filler, and then you'll have a binder and a wrapper. So typically a vast majority, I would say over half the cigars on the market would typically consist of about 5 tobaccos in that one cigar.
And there's a few sort of common sort of themes. Typically fermenting, they've usually been fermented twice, but there's a few brands or specific lines within brands that make a big deal of the fact that they're fermented a 3rd time. Most tobaccos are aged for up to about 2 years before they go in, but then there's other companies that age for even longer, and they'll make a big deal out of that. Age for 4 years, age for 6 years, etc. And again, it is similar to the whole red wine kind of thing. There's sort of standard stuff that's expected, and then there's the companies that try and differentiate themselves by doing something a bit different. Age for longer, age in bourbon barrels, do different things like that. Or
some cigar companies like Perdomo, since I'm a Perdomo fanboy, if you can't already tell.
You can't tell, yeah.
They'll buy a batch of tobacco, and it was exceptional tobacco, but they just didn't have anything at that point in time to blend it to do it justice, so they stick it in the back of their warehouse, and then 5-10 years later they go, oh, let's make something out of that.
Yeah. And it fascinates me. The ship has sailed. I'm in the wrong part of the world, and I'm probably too old to be getting into it now. But it does fascinate me to think, what do you have to have developed in your brain and in your ability to taste to be able to go, oh, hey, that tobacco that we've got sitting in that shed that we've sat on because we had there wasn't the right other tobaccos to put it with. This tobacco that I've just sampled, that's the right tobacco. Like, what? That's a very, very specialized skill.
Yeah.
That clearly, like people like Perdomo, absolutely have that nailed, and they just produce amazing cigar after amazing cigar. It is literally a lifetime's pursuit.
I have heard rumors that some of the blenders, what they'll do is they'll just grab a leaf from one bale, a leaf from another, and just loosely roll them together and just light them up and try and crudely smoke them to get an idea. Is like, yeah, that's going to work. Oh no, that's going to work. And then they'll snuff it out and take whichever one they think's wrong out and grab a different leaf and roll it up and light it up again. And that's one of the ways they blend. I reckon that'd be a lot of fun to try.
Amazing. So, Stuart, we've gone into detail on this in previous episodes, so I'm not going to go into detail again. But they basically pack all the leaves together, lay them on top of each other, tie them by their stems, and hang them in a warehouse that's designed to be able to. They've got shutters, and they can change the airflow, and they can kind of account for the humidity and the temperature, etc., and try and keep the conditions to be roughly right. And they have to rotate them regularly and so forth, so they ferment rather than rotting. But yeah, there's kind of this whole process, and there's these whole warehouses where they're just literally hanging the tobacco in order to do that.
So that's the first stage, where they're actually, the main purpose of that is to actually initiate the fermentation and the drying process. And then what they do is they stack them in piles called pilons, and then cover it with canvas tarps. And they're actually trying to then get the temperature from the enzymatic fermentation to rise, but they've got to be careful not to rise the temperature too much, otherwise it will compost down. And they're unpacking them and restacking them and then covering them with the canvas tarp again to get that enzymatic fermentation. So that's the second stage of fermentation. Yeah. And then the third stage is they'll age the tobacco, and then they'll often actually stack the cigars together and then let the cigars sort of go through another stage of fermentation together as well.
No. And then you can do your own aging in your own humidor and keep them together, group them according to, whether they're Maduros or Connecticut's, or mix them up. If you like Connecticut's, but you want a little bit more boldness, you can age them in a humidor alongside a bunch of Maduros, and they'll just slightly affect each other over time. And
that's
yeah,
what I like.
You can kind of end up creating your own little unique twist on the cigars that you're buying.
Now, I've picked up an acidity as I'm getting down towards the nub. Can't pick up any flavors, but I'm definitely picking up a sourness on the palate from this cigar.
So I just lost my ash. You've lost your ash a little while ago as well. And that sourness kicked in with the loss of the ash. That I didn't have that literally 3 puffs ago. But definitely there's just that tightening of the sides of the tongue, real kind of sour. It's not a citrusy sour, but it's a similar effect as if you had a bit of lemon. And it just sort of that little bit of tightening, that's what's happening. But it is a different flavor. I'm not quite sure what the flavor is.
After drop the ash, I think I've lost the sourness or the bitterness or the tang for that matter.
Show us your cigar though. You've got a full final third to go. Yeah.
And it actually became very, very pleasant. It has started to get those bitter notes, but now has become very pleasant after that. Yeah,
this is it didn't turn till it dropped that ash, but now it's definitely turned. I'm going to let it rest. I will puff on it a few more times, but I'm just going to let it cool down first. I'm going to say, it does get a bit hot, on the lips. I'm going to say though, that was even better than last week's, and last week's was very good. That's my assessment.
I think I'm still on par, but just that's another thing that I just was thinking as we were smoking a cigar. I think for anyone that is getting into cigars or obviously been smoking it for a while, I think my biggest challenge that I thought at the beginning I used to listen to people who have smoked a similar cigar, and I completely cut myself off that. I don't want to know what people have thought of that cigar because of preconceived ideas, and you just go ramble on. You think of that, you think of almonds, you think of A, B, C, and D. Yes, you're going to go with the clean head, absolutely, as if you didn't know anything about cigars, or the matter that Perdomo tastes like that versus, Padrones versus Ave Maria, whatever. I just got to take a cigar on its merit. And I think that's where you enjoy it the most, with a completely open mind, because people would do that. And I think eventually it's not as much fun or fairness to the cigar.
And the point you made earlier, we all experience flavor differently. Our climates are different. You get tasting notes from someone who's sitting outside in 100% humidity in Florida, and you watch their video and go, oh, okay, is that what that cigar's like? Well, you're sitting in Melbourne on a winter's night. It's not going to be the same experience.
Yes.
It's going
And
to
their
taste
palate is
different.
different.
Yeah, and the palate's different. The drink you put it with is different. Everything's going to be different. So I think there's definitely truth to that. I will say, there are some cigars that I will look up in advance, particularly if so there's a balance between experiencing, but also for someone like myself and for the three of us, we love flavors. We love exploring flavor. So there is also something to be said for sometimes having something in your mind and then going, okay, can I detect that? What was that person talking about when they said this? Do I agree or don't I? So I think there's a little bit of a balance to that. But I like doing that a lot with tea because it's cheap. You can get different teas very, very cheap, and they've got different things in them, and you can read the box and you can see what's in it. You go, okay, so this is going to have some these berries or some of that, that citrus or this whatever. Yeah. You can get a million different kinds of tea and kind of train your palate very cheaply and read the packet. And then you can go to the cigars sight unseen and you've got, more reference points, more of that flavor memory that Damo was talking about.
And same with coffee as well.
Same with
coffee.
A lot of
cafes, they'll often sell their coffee there, and the good cafes will actually put little tasting notes on the bag of coffee. It might be rhubarb or apple or cinnamon or peaches or almonds or chocolate. And it's good to actually try that coffee and see if you can pick those flavors in it.
Tim Molesworth saying, oh, good, now I'm going to be a teetotaler. So I was giving him a hard time while we were traveling around because he was drinking the ginger beers rather than the beers. So now that he knows he can use teas to develop his palate, he's just gonna go off the whiskeys altogether. Tim, you should hang out with Omar. You might actually like him. Drinking his weird hippie kombucha homebrew.
Yeah, there's you gotta merit for that. You got some points. There's a time for that,
Yeah, after you're dead.
You wouldn't know after you die where he goes.
Okay, so I let it rest for a little while, cool off after that ash had dropped, build up a little bit of ash of its own, and it's really come good. Still got a bit of that twist, still got a bit of that sourness, not as pronounced, but boy, I'm back to really, really enjoying it.
Same.
Yeah, just smoke through. I mean, this is literally going to get right down. Sorry, Damo.
I'm noticing the heat a lot more on this as I'm going down to the nub compared to last week. Last week I was really, I burnt it almost to nothing. But tonight I don't think I'll be able to get down that far because just the heat that's coming off it.
Look, it's definitely getting warm, but I'm right down to the finger burning stage and I'm still enjoying this thing, which I don't think I could say for last week's. Last week's had a turn. Halfway through the final third, it turned, and it didn't come back from that, whereas this did. But it is just so ridiculously short now that I just can't keep that going.
So is it about an hour 10?
Yeah, pretty much. Hour 10. Now, last week's one went for a long time, didn't it? If my memory serves me, that went really, really well.
Hour 25.
Hour 20, 25, somewhere there, yeah.
I think the way I felt the draw on this tonight, I think maybe last week's was just a little bit more densely packed.
Well, Omar, you've probably still got another 10 minutes in yours, though.
Yeah, definitely. I think I slowed down after my ash was dropped. I think we're about 5 minutes behind at you guys after whole dropping and stuff like that.
Well, you lit up at the same time, so you've showed remarkable restraint.
The reason he keeps dropping it the screen is because he's actually got two cigars going.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
I'm not gonna lie, I did at some point.
There we go. There we go.
Comes out. Just make sure the tasting notes are from the correct cigar, would you?
Yeah, trust me.
Oh, yep. Now that's onto the full like blistering the fingers stage. So that's going to have to be it from that one. That was beautiful. And yet another brand that I would have overlooked in a cigar shop.
Easily.
Would have just gone Hammer and Sickle, never heard of them, not interested, don't care, move on. Would never have tried.
Yeah. Didn't never judge a book by its cover, man.
And yet they don't let you smoke them as samples for some strange reason. So how do you not judge a book by its cover?
Yeah.
I mean, I went to a bookshop one time and started smoking the first couple of pages and they kicked me out. So so good. So how much longer is this Russian fascination going to go on for, Damo? Are we stuck with Russian cigars for the whole pack?
That was all that was left and available of this brand winding up that I purchased.
Wow.
But I will keep my eye out. The guy who developed this brand, Eric Hansen, I'll be keeping an eye out to see what he comes up with when he relaunches and rebrands himself, if he does. I hope he does. The interesting thing, though, that in an interview, he pointed out that the Hammer and Sickle doesn't represent the Soviet Union, but symbolizes the Russian industrial north and the agrarian, is that the word? Agrarian south.
Right.
Yeah, he said it was a symbol of the heritage of the country and not the political nature of the country. So
okay, did he say that after Russia invaded Ukraine, as he was trying to like salvage the brand, or did he say that before?
That was before.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll give it some credit then. Well, we've got coming up next week. We've got the Oliva Connecticut Reserve Petite Corona. Now that's the smallest one in the pack, so that'll be probably a less than 1 hour smoke, would be my guess, a 4-inch by 38. But Oliva, so it's going to be good. The construction quality is going to be good. The flavors are going to be good. And then we're back to a nice chunky one, the Monte Cristo Espada Guard Toro, 6-inch by 50. So same ring gauge as what we've just had, but an inch longer. So if we're getting hour 10, hour 15 burn times out of these, then I wonder what we'll get out of a Toro.
Mate, I'm waiting to see what our burn time will get out of the Southern Draw, our second last stick of the pack.
Yes.
6.5.
Now I've got some thoughts on that one. I'm going to keep them to myself, but I got some thoughts on that one.
Which one?
The second last one. It's the Southern Draw. It's called the Ignite, but it's raising money for the Navy SEALs for their like veterans care, mental health, and that sort of stuff. Yes, I smoked one, and I was there when a mate of mine smoked one, and I have some thoughts on it, but I will keep that to myself until we smoke it as a group, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what unfolds. Tim says, Southern Draw sounds interesting. I like all that redneck stuff. Well, you'd like Damo then, because he just runs around. He just travels the country blowing shit up. So, Yeah, so Daniel was, I was there when Daniel smoked his. Similar experience to mine, but we'll wait and see. I do not want to taint or prejudice anyone in favor or against. We'll just wait and see what happens. Second last week of this pack.
Yeah, well, I'm getting too hot to hold here, so I'm going to say thank you and put it down.
Bit too hot to handle. Yeah, you got a solid hour and 10, close to hour and 15 out of that. And Omar's going to bore us all to tears with another 10 minutes of just looking at him.
Yeah, just about 5 to 10.
Yeah, we can finish the show.
But I can resonate with what you guys said. It's getting a little warm and bitter again. I am with the Connecticut Topher.
Okay.
I enjoy it a little bit better, a little bit
more. It's okay. You're allowed to be wrong.
Yeah, always been right.
That's okay, mate. That's all right. Between friends, we can be honest. You're allowed to be wrong. Well, look, we're not going to sit and watch Omar smoke for 10 minutes. But I got a very quick shake of the head from Damo in agreement. He's like, no, we're out of here. But guys, tonight's been fun. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone that's joined us, everyone that's commented. Stuart and Tim, I look forward to seeing you up in Sydney next weekend. Now, Damo, the plans that I've got are coming together. I can't lock it in yet, but hopefully I will be able to inflict myself upon you in your warehouse for the Cigar Professor next week, live in person there next to you. So you're just going to have to like move the camera back a little bit and make room for me sitting next. You can handle that?
I can.
Just hopefully my BO won't affect your tasting notes or anything. Hopefully you'll be able to smell your way past that.
Sounds like a plan. I've got some deodorant there that's tobacco infused. So
he doesn't disagree with me. He's not like no, you're fine. No. He's like, oh yeah, that's true, but I think I'll manage.
I'll give you the tobacco infused deodorant.
That's a real man scent there. Is that
That's it.
Yeah.
Just don't go around Omar with that.
Yeah. That's a real aphrodisiac for Omar. All right. Well, on that extremely disturbing note, we're going to call it a night. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully I'll be in Sydney sitting next to Damo and we'll have a lot of fun. See you guys then.
Yeah, boys.